Film is the art of visual storytelling, and a good film uses all the tools at its disposal to make sure the images we see on screen tell as much of the story as the dialogue does. And what better tool is there than the camera? From lenses to framing to different angles, there are so many ways that the camera can be used to tell the story. And one of the most noticeable is through movement. So today we have 3 camera moves and how to use them up next on Fact Bites. And before we shout action on this one, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and that bell for notifications. Alright, let's talk a little history. The first films were basically recorded stage plays. The cameras were set up to capture the actors from head to toe in a single static shot. In fact, directors at the time were concerned about anything other than a wide shot because they were worried that cutting off parts of an actor's body would make the audiences feel uncomfortable. Which is strange, because paintings and photos existed, so did they think the audience would assume the rest of the actor had just disappeared? Luckily, in 1901, director G.A. Smith used a close-up in his short film, The Sick Kitten. This 40-second film starts with a wide shot of the actors and their sick kitty, then cuts to a close-up of said kitten taking its medicine. This close-up showed that not only could audiences accept different framing, but also that by using different framing techniques, films could convey more information in a more meaningful way. The close-up was followed by the panning shot in 1903, first used in The Great Train Robbery from Edwin S. Porter. The camera pans to follow the action of the robbers jumping from the train and running away. Watch this stunning achievement in filmmaking history as the camera first loses, then quickly readjusts to find the actors again. Man, filmmaking is hard, isn't it? From there, camera moves take off, from tilts to rolls to smash zooms. So let's take a look at a few now, starting with the whip pan. The whip pan is a camera move and transition all in one. But before we get into it, let's clear up a few things about regular pans. A pan is the movement of a camera on the x-axis, from left to right. This is the only type of movement that can be called a pan. Any other type of movement? Not a pan. This tilt, it's up and down, not a pan. This zoom, also not a pan. This tracking shot, technically not a pan because the camera itself is moving. Think of a pan like moving your head on your neck. If you're seated in a room and you need to look around, you don't need to move your whole body, you just need to turn your head from side to side. Replace your head with a camera and your neck with a fluid tripod, and that's a pan. Now, a whip pan is just like a regular pan, but faster, fast enough to blur the scene for a second. It's a high-energy camera move that makes the camera act as the audience's point of view. Remember that neck analogy from earlier? Same thing, just faster. Whip pans are used most often for 3 reasons. Number 1, as a means to reveal something to the audience. Number 2, to create a connection between 2 characters or objects in a scene. And finally, number 3, to follow the motion of a character or object that is moving past the camera. This final use can be particularly effective if you are trying to convey that something is moving very fast, like a knife or a speedy superhero. But whip pans can also be used to transition from one shot to the next, especially combined with a whoosh sound effect. They can give the audience the sensation of moving through space and time. Director Edgar Wright uses this technique to keep the action of a scene or sequence moving when it might otherwise get stale and boring. It's a way to convey the concept of in media res, or into the middle of things. That's a writing technique that suggests you should enter a scene already in progress and exit a scene before the action ends. That way, there's no downtime. Just be careful not to overdo it. You don't want your audience to get sick of whip pans. Or just generally sick. Okay, no more whip pans. Next up is the Dolly Zoom, also known as the Zolly shot. Now, this is a complicated camera move that involves moving the camera and zooming in opposite directions. You can either zoom in while pulling the camera back, or zoom out while pushing the camera in. This has the effect of keeping your subject roughly the same size in the frame, but makes your background either grow or shrink around them. This move was first used by Erman Roberts, the second unit director of photography on Hitchcock's classic Vertigo. Roberts created the technique to simulate the internal experience of Scotty, the film's protagonist, when he's suffering from acrophobia, a fear of heights. It simulates the feeling of dizziness or vertigo, which is why it's also referred to as the vertigo effect. Although a classic now, Vertigo was considered a flop in 1958, but the Zolly technique was here to stay. Zollies are used to increase the tension in a scene and typically convey a character's inner sense of anxiety or unease. It can make the audience feel like the world of the film is closing in on them, or like the rest of the world is slipping away and out of their control. Zollies work best when the subject is in the center of the frame, but centering your subject makes sense if you're using the technique as a means to tell a subjective point of view. Zollies are a pretty complicated shot to pull off. They require a coordinated camera team that can push or pull the camera physically, zoom the lens in or out, and maintain focus on the subject all at the same time. If you have a small team, this may be a near impossible shot to pull off, but if you're not opposed to some post-production trickery, you can get a similar effect by shooting a dolly shot and then animating the scale in editing. But you didn't hear that from me. Okay, and our last shot for today is the deep focus shot using a split diopter lens. A split diopter lens is essentially an extra lens that can be added to the front of the camera to give the shot two different fields of view. With a regular lens, you can focus on the foreground with a blurry background, or you can focus on the background with a blurry foreground. What the director and the director of photography choose to keep in focus tells the audience what the important elements of each shot is, guiding their eyes to what they should be paying attention to. With a split diopter lens, you can have a foreground element and a background element in focus at the same time. One of the first pioneers of this technique was Greg Toland, the director of photography on 1940's Long Voyage Home. Toland would go on to DP Citizen Kane in 1941, which popularized the technique. A deep focus split diopter lens shot is used to connect two elements of a scene together. Take Brian De Palma's Blowout from 1981. The movie is about a sound recordist who accidentally records a murder. It utilizes the split diopter to cut the distance between the main character and the sounds he's hearing and recording. Split diopter lenses can also increase the tension in a scene. See, camera lenses typically work the same way the human eye does, albeit on a much less sophisticated scale. The human eye was not designed to hold two objects at different distances in focus at the same time. So when you use a split diopter shot, we as the audience start to feel a little off. I don't like this shot. What's that guy in the background doing? What are you doing that the audience needs to see you in focus and also me in focus at the same time? I don't trust him. To capture this shot in the camera, you need a specialized piece of equipment which can get pretty pricey. But you can create a similar seamless look by shooting your close-up shot and your distance shot separately with a green screen behind your close-up. It takes a little extra effort in post, but the results are pretty good. And those are the 3 moves that we have for you today. As a final tip, remember to keep your camera moves motivated. Don't just move the camera because you can. How is this camera move serving to tell the story? Is it putting your audience in the character's point of view? Is it placing them within a larger scene? Is it enhancing the mood and atmosphere that you're trying to convey? Always make sure your camera decisions serve to enhance the storytelling. So there are tons of camera moves out there. We didn't even scratch the surface. What type of camera move is your favorite? Is there one you want us to show you? Leave us a comment down below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and that bell for notifications so you always know when the next Fact Bites premieres. Thanks for watching.